All right. Hi, everybody. So it is Tara Boothby here with Tony Zerbin, and Tony is a master's level, just moving into his big career here, which is really exciting. I've known Tony for a long time, and we like to talk about all sorts of professional goals.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, Tony, what do you think? You were bringing up the concept of trust, and I think it's a really important topic, actually.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, just in my experience talking to a variety of people, there's a couple of things that I've come across about the topic of trust. It's one of these things I think people tend to kind of take for granted as part of whatever worldview they inherit. But we don't take a step back and kind of tease it apart and observe it and see how it all works. So, some of the things that I've seen and conversations I've had with people is trust is often treated as a binary. Either you trust me or you don't. And that's a challenge for a lot of people, um, especially when it comes to stepping into relationships, building trust, and maybe cross even big gulfs, different beliefs about the way the world works. How do we build trust with each other and have a sense of safety with each other, right? So I think just segueing into it, safety is the ground that trust is built on.
I agree. That's an important piece. And it's interesting how we speak about trust. You're right. It's so binary. Do you trust me? And this like we talk about trust as if it's black and white.
Yeah.
Like you either do or you don't. And really, it's like, could you imagine if we talked about trust on a scale?
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
actually could said, how much do you trust me? Like, what percent would you give me if we had that? Here's a key as well
Yeah.
with safety, flexibility.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
flexibility in relationship is actually a symbol of strength in the relationship. The more flexible I am, the more I understand that trust isn't binary. Some days I
Yeah.
trust more than others.
Yeah.
So
Or domains even. I can trust you with XYZ, but I can't trust you with these things over here. Or I only trust you with them under certain circumstances.
yes.
So it's like a whole field to like navigate through rather than just a black and white.
Right. And then it also goes back to what you were saying about safety, that in safe trust, I can have boundaries of which parts I share, which parts I trust you with.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's different relationships. I think of with my girlfriends, the things I trust them with that I don't necessarily think of trusting my husband with, even though he's a person I trust the most.
yeah.
It's really interesting.
That is no, that is super interesting. Um, that kind of ties in a little bit to our last conversation about your pack.
Yes.
Who's in your pack, who's not in your pack, and how do we re-navigate that, especially during COVID. Um, and I think, man, life is so serious right now. There's so many stresses. There's so many concerns. Work is a huge question. When am I going to get work? How long am I going to keep work for? That's a huge question. And finances, health, man, there's a lot of things to worry about. So building trust with people is a challenge, particularly in this time when there's a lot of threats to security, that we can't do much about.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, you and I have this collegial trust, like we're
Mhm.
colleagues and we're at different stages of our career, but we've
Yeah,
really enjoyed sharing this trust. And I think what works about our trust, and it also plays back to something you were saying about culture, is there's a curiosity. Like when we have curiosity in a relationship, we can have more trust.
yeah,
You and I have a lot of safety to be curious together, and that's why we like to talk. It's like, hey, I have this strange thought. Can we be curious together? Is a form of trusting.
yeah, yeah. No,
And
no,
also
exactly.
with culture, it's the same thing. Can I be curious about your culture?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a huge piece right there. Can I be curious? One of the favorite maxims I ever heard growing up that I just took right in and made a part of my life is, man, I can't remember the wording exactly, but the idea is, are you willing to be able to understand something without having to accept it.
Right.
And that takes flexibility. It's like we feel it right down into our spine almost. Can I check something out over here or over here and understand it without saying, okay, I get how that works. I don't agree with it. I get how somebody can think differently. I don't agree with it, but I can keep my boundary. They can have theirs. And then how do we meet? How do we meet and establish trust?
I agree with that. And to me, what you're speaking about is, can I trust myself as well? Can I trust myself to be curious? Can I trust myself to talk to somebody who's different than me and be challenged on who I am?
Yeah.
And put up with all that discomfort.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah. And what if, because the risk is, if I trust myself enough to have uncomfortable conversations, I might change. And for some reason that can be very frightening. And then we just want to get hard and fast and, binary about trust.
Yep. No, exactly.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. And I think too, when we speak about curiosity, for the people that we're speaking with, when I'm curious about somebody else, that person has experience. They can say somewhere inside of them, maybe I can trust Tara because she at least wants to be curious about me.
Yeah. That's really extending kind of like an olive branch out and saying, you know what, we're in two different places, but maybe I can trust.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be full and all, but maybe that's a place to start.
Right. And what if there was more acceptance for the stance of maybe I can trust rather than the more typical stance of do you trust me?
Yeah. Kind of that ultimatum, right?
Right. Really interesting. So this is a lot of food for thought, and this is just an exciting philosophical piece. I love these conversations that we have, Tony. So any final thoughts before we wind things down?
You know what? Anything else I bring up would just get me excited into new topics. I think there's a lot to chew on here already.
Yeah,
I trust that.
I trust that as well. And thank you so much. So take care, Tony. Take care, everybody else, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.